Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder how our minds cope after a big scary event, especially a heart scare? Today we're diving into a fascinating study that asks if the tools we use to measure that distress are actually working as well as we think. Imagine going through a heart attack or another serious heart event. It's not just your body that's shaken up, right? Your mind goes through a lot too. Feelings of fear, uncertainty, and worry about the future become huge. Scientists have created a questionnaire called the Cardiac Distress Inventory, or CDI, to help measure these feelings. It has been translated into a bunch of languages. But what about the Swedish version, and are our ways of checking if these questionnaires are good or up to date? This study tackles those questions. So, the researchers wanted to see if the Swedish version of this Cardiac Distress Inventory, the CDI, was a good tool. They translated it, then had 353 people who'd experienced heart problems fill it out online. They used some pretty advanced math tools, like rash analysis and something called confirmatory factor analysis with dynamic fit indices, to really dig into the data. They also looked at Test-Retest correlations, which basically means if people felt the same way about the questions a couple of weeks apart. Their goal was to see if the questionnaire was measuring things accurately, if the questions made sense together, and if different types of people got similar results. They also reanalyzed the original English data with these new methods. And here is where it gets really interesting. They found out that the original questionnaire in both the Swedish and English versions didn't quite fit the bill. Neither the full version nor a shorter version, called the CDI were perfect. Many of the questions had issues. Some questions didn't seem to be measuring what they were supposed to. Others seemed to be related to each other too much. And even the way the answer options were set up seemed a bit jumbled. For example, many items showed problems with disorder thresholds. Simply put, this means the way people were asked to rate their distress from no distress to severe distress wasn't working clearly for everyone. Some options didn't seem to mean very different things to people. They also looked at something called invariance. This is super important. It asks if the questionnaire means the same thing for different groups of people. For example, does it measure distress the same way for a 60-year-old as it does for a 70-year-old? They found that for some questions, especially in the cognitive challenges part, age made a big difference in how people answered. Even if their actual distress level was the same, this is a problem because it means the questionnaire might be giving a less accurate picture for older individuals, perhaps making them seem more distressed than they are just because of age-related cognitive changes. But here's the good news. The researchers didn't just stop there. They went back and revised the questionnaire. They tweaked some questions, removed others, and even combined some answer choices. After this iterative revision process, they retested the scales. And guess what? Most of the revised subscales, except for the one about death concerns, were much better. They fit the new measurement standards. For example, the revised physical challenges subscale, made up of items like physical restriction, shortness of breath, and chest discomfort, showed good reliability. The fear and uncertainty subscale, with items like changed self, future uncertainty, and activity avoidance also worked well. They even developed a revised short form, the CDI -6, with just 6 items, which seemed to be a reliable option for screening emotional challenges related to heart disease. They used something called confirmatory factor analysis, or CFA, to check how well the revised scales fit together. The revised 6-item short form in Swedish, the CDI -6, actually showed excellent model fit. That is a really good sign that the questions in this shorter version are measuring a single common concept, which is what you want in a screening tool. The original English short form, however, didn't do as well even after revision, and the original Australian data also showed issues with the English CDI-SF. This suggests some problems might be with the instrument itself, not just the translation. So, what does all this mean? The original CDI, even with its good intentions, had some serious psychometric issues, meaning it wasn't measuring perfectly. The translation into Swedish and reanalysis using modern techniques really brought these problems to light. Things like not all questions measuring the same thing, the response options being confusing, and some questions being answered differently by different groups of people. The fact that the response categories were problematic is a big deal. If people don't understand or use the answer choices in the way the question intends, the whole measurement can be off. The researchers even suggest that maybe the yes/no option at the start of the questions, or the number of categories, or even the wording of those categories needs rethinking. And that invariance issue, especially with age and cognitive challenges. That's a critical finding if a tool designed to measure heart distress ends up just measuring age-related cognitive changes. It's not doing its job. This highlights the need to be super careful when using these tools with diverse populations. Now, about that revised short form, the CDI -6, while it is shown good reliability, the researchers also question if it really captures the whole picture of cardiac distress anymore. It seems to focus more on emotional struggles and less on physical or health system challenges. So, while it is a reliable tool for certain things, it might not replace the broader aspects of the original concept. One cool thing about this study is how they compared their Swedish findings with the original Australian study. By using the same modern analysis methods on both datasets, they could confidently say that the problems they found seemed to be with the instrument itself, not just the quirky translation. The use of dynamic cutoffs instead of older guesswork, rule-off, thumb cutoffs gave them a much clearer picture of what was really going on with the data. What's next? The researchers say we definitely need more testing. They want to see how these revised scales perform in different groups of people with different types of heart disease and at different stages of their illness, like in the immediate aftermath of an event versus years later. They also think we need to look more closely at that response category structure. And for global comparisons, they're pushing for consistent methods to be used across all the different language versions of the CDI. So, in a nutshell, this study took a fresh look at the cardiac distress inventory, using the latest scientific tools. They found that the original versions, while useful, had some significant flaws. But through careful revision, they've created new versions of the subscales that are much more reliable, especially the Swedish translation. However, they also point out that the content has not been established for these revised scales, meaning we still need to be sure they're truly measuring what they're supposed to, and they really emphasize the need for more testing across different populations. This was a really thorough investigation, and it's great that they're using such rigorous methods to make sure our tools for understanding psychological distress are as accurate as possible. Think about it, if our measurements aren't right, how can we truly help people who are going through such difficult times? From my perspective, this is a fantastic example of how science evolves. What was considered top-notch a few years ago might need an update with new methods and more data. The fact that they found flaws in both the Swedish and English versions really underscores that these weren't just translation hiccups, but deeper issues with the questionnaire itself. The revisions are a step forward, but the call for more validation, especially regarding how people actually use the response scales and how the scales perform across different patient groups, is crucial. It shows that even well-established questionnaires need ongoing scrutiny. What are your thoughts on this? Have you ever filled out a questionnaire that felt confusing or like it didn't quite fit? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with anyone who might be interested. And don't forget to subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more deep dives into the fascinating world of psychology research. Well, see you next time.